Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this interactive and informative webinar that we've aptly named Happiness Every Day Keeps Diabetes Away. I am Akshay V. Masurekar, co-founder and managing partner at Samak Soul Waters. We are an alternative healing and a holistic wellness startup. Our focus is on empowering people to heal, transform, and grow. And through these holistic webinars, we aim to create an awareness about certain lifestyle myths and about making effective changes to the same in order to experience and live a life of holistic health and wellness. Now, for some statistics on diabetes, so India is home to almost 77 million diabetics, which makes it the second highest in the world. And diabetes, of course, psychologically is a result of lack of sweetness in our life. Let us now take a look at why is India called as the capital of diabetes. And under this webinar, we will talk about how we can keep diabetes away by adopting a happy and healthy lifestyle. We have with us Dr. Sanahita Valavalkar and Incha Arora as the main speakers for this webinar. And Dr. Valavalkar is a metabolic diseases consultant, and her areas of interest include diabetes, hypertension, lipid disorders, and preventive lifestyle interventions. She also has quite a few research papers to her credit. Dr. Valavalkar is a consultant at the following centers: Dr. Panikar's Diabetes and Thyroid Care Center, Dadar and Bandra, Kastur Mahal Polyclinic at Sion, and Sri Kamal Polyclinic at Worli. Our next speaker is a very dear friend, Incha Arora. Incha is also my co-founder and partner at Evolve and Samak Soul Waters, respectively. Being a true health and fitness enthusiast and a graduate from the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, New York, Incha has been exposed to a variety of innovative coaching methods, practical lifestyle management techniques, and over 100 dietary theories. Like Ayurveda, gluten-free, paleo, raw, macrobiotics, and everything in between. Now that was about the webinar in brief and about our speakers. I would now like to ask Dr. Sanahita to take over. But before they do that, I would request both Dr. Sanahita and Incha to say a few words. Also, for our participants, if there are any questions, feel free to post those in the chat box, and we would be happy to take those towards the end of the webinar. Also, avoid posting questions in the personal chat box. All right, I think with that, over to you, Dr. Sanahita and Incha.
Thank you, dear Akshay. Hello, everyone. Very good evening.
Good evening.
So, today we are going to talk about happiness every day that keeps, or at least tends to keep, diabetes away. So, let's begin to be happy. So, I would like to cover this under the following headings: diabetes, let's beat it; precursors to diabetes, let us know a few things about the steps just before we enter this arena; diet another day; be wise, exercise; changing our life and style; diabetes and genes; addictions; and happiness. So yes, let's learn what is diabetes. I'm sure all of you are aware about what is diabetes, what is pre-diabetes, but still let us look at what is diabetes through the basics and what leads to this diabetes. So let's begin. As per World Health Organization, diabetes is defined as a chronic metabolic disease, and it's characterized by increased or elevated levels of blood sugar. This leads, which is called as hyperglycemia, which leads over time to serious damage to various organs and systems in our body, including heart, blood vessels, eyes, kidneys, nerves, and many more. Worldwide, approximately 422 million people have diabetes. Let's look at Indian figures. As Akshay has already mentioned, we are at the very top along with China. And apparently we are going to overtake China within next year or two. A dubious distinction, which we definitely like to avoid. So there are estimated about 72.96 million cases of people with diabetes. And this is, we are talking about adult population in India. The prevalence, there is urban-rural divide. So about 10 to 14% prevalence in urban areas, a little less in rural. So what it tells us, that it is only the tip of the iceberg. Because as compared to people with diabetes, there is a multifold increase in prevalence of pre-diabetes in all over India, particularly amongst 15 states where this ICMR India B population-based cross-sectional study was conducted. Here it was found out that approximately prevalence of pre-diabetes is about 7.3% pan-India, and a higher prevalence in Indian urban areas as compared to rural. So again, in rural areas, what was the distinction? Distinctly, diabetes was more prevalent in individuals of higher income groups in rural. But in urban areas, particularly in affluent states, diabetes was unfortunately more prevalent in people with lower socioeconomic group. Next. So the bitter pill that India has to swallow, 128% growth rate of people suffering from diabetes or having diabetes between 1990 to 2013. As far as women are concerned, neck and neck growth in women diabetics has risen by 109%, and in men it is 126%. So out of our pockets, we are spending about 90.32 billion rupees on management of diabetes. Next slide, please. So now let us understand what is pre-diabetes. Pre-diabetes is also called as borderline diabetes, and it is a metabolic condition. It is very closely linked to obesity, if it is, and generally because it is asymptomatic. So if it is undiagnosed or untreated, then pre-diabetes can develop into type 2 diabetes. Now, once type 2 diabetes develops, though it is treatable, but currently at least it is not fully reversible. Next slide, please. So pre-diabetes is characterized by presence of blood glucose levels. These are higher than normal, but they are not high enough to be classed as diabetes. For this very reason, pre-diabetes or borderline diabetes is often described as the gray area between normal blood sugar levels and diabetic levels. Now, what is this? It is a critical stage in the development of diabetes, because here, exactly as far as the normal lifestyle stages are concerned in the diabetic management, if we make proper lifestyle choices, if we modify our lifestyle, then it can be turned around at this stage. So early decisive action can slow down or even halt the development of type 2 diabetes. Hence, pre-diabetes is extremely important for an individual. So how to diagnose pre-diabetes? This average of blood sugar, which is called as HbA1c, which is the average of last 3 months of blood sugar levels. If it's below 5.7%, then it is considered as a euglycemic, normal blood sugar. And if it is between 5.7 to 6.4%, then it is called as pre-diabetes. If it rises to 6.5% or higher, particularly on 2 separate occasions, then it indicates type 2 diabetes. We have 2 types of tests. Either it is fasting blood glucose level, which can be tested, and it is diagnostic, or it is called as impaired glucose tolerance test. So oral glucose tolerance test, when blood sugar on taking 75 grams of glucose is more than 140 but less than 200 milligrams per deciliter, it may be considered as prediabetes. Or fasting blood glucose, which is greater than 110 but less than 126 milligrams per deciliter, is one of the diagnostic criteria for prediabetes. Next slide, please. Now, there's something called as metabolic syndrome, and diabetes is very much a part of this metabolic syndrome. So what is this metabolic syndrome? One of the criteria for metabolic syndrome is abdominal obesity. So if waist circumference in men, if it is greater than 102 and women 88 centimeters. Mind you, in Indian scenario, it is much less. It is 90 centimeters in men and 80 centimeters in women, because we are all thin, fat Indians. So levels are little lower. Increased triglyceride levels. What is triglyceride? It is one of the bad lipids or bad cholesterol. If it is greater than or equal to 150 milligrams per deciliter, good cholesterol, which is called as HDL cholesterol, if it is less than 40 in men and less than 50 in women, high blood pressure, greater than 130 by 85 millimeters of mercury, and of course, high fasting glucose. Now, 2 out of the 3 criteria, if they are fulfilled, then that person could be having metabolic syndrome. Next slide, please. Insulin resistance, the very basis of this metabolic syndrome, which drives person towards type 2 diabetes mellitus and many other complications. So what is this insulin resistance? Insulin resistance is the nomenclature or name which is given to when the cells of our body do not respond properly to hormone insulin. This insulin is the one, or it's the only hormone in our body which controls our blood sugars. And when this hormone is available in plenty, but when the cells of the body do not respond to the presence of insulin, it is called as insulin resistance. And this is the driving factor which leads to type 2 diabetes or gestational diabetes, or even for that matter, pre-diabetes. Next slide, please. So why is it so important to know a little bit about insulin resistance? Because it is insulin which allows the cells of our body to take in glucose. If insulin is present, but if these cells of our body, they cannot utilize sugar, which is obviously required as fuel, or if it is not properly stored as body fat, then this insulin resistance, even though insulin is present in plenty, can't be utilized. And this leads to increased levels of glucose in blood. And high blood sugar levels is obviously one of the factors which causes multiple complications of diabetes in future. Now, when our body becomes resistant, or cells in our body become resistant to insulin, then obviously the body tries to produce more and more insulin. So it has often been found that people with insulin resistance, they produce more insulin than even healthy people. And this condition is called as hyperinsulinemia. Next slide, please. So how to reverse this insulin resistance? So to gain some, we need to lose some. And what is the original basic factor? Insulin resistance is highly dependent upon abdominal obesity and weight. So we need to lose at least 7 to 10% of weight, which is really very important. And not only weight centric, but we also need to gain fitness, but a whole lot of exercising, which obviously we'll deal with a little later. So losing weight and gaining fitness by exercises is the way to go to reverse insulin resistance and hence keep diabetes at bay. Next slide, please. So what are the risk factors for type 2 diabetes? As we have dealt with Earlier, the same factors that are responsible for insulin resistance, pre-diabetes are also the driving factors towards type 2 diabetes. So obesity, lack of exercise, sedentary lifestyle, high blood pressure, gestational diabetes, that is diabetes developed during pregnancy, ethnicity, South Asians and obviously Indians, they are more prone to develop diabetes at an early stage, approximately a decade earlier as compared to their European counterparts, family history of diabetes, and obviously as aging begins, as people age, the tendency to develop diabetes sets in. Next slide, please. Yeah. How to identify people at risk? These people are at greater risk for development of diabetes, and they are people who have impaired glucose tolerance, the people who have suffered from acute coronary syndrome. Now, what we are talking about here is these people are not diabetic. They are supposedly normal, healthy people. But if they have impaired glucose tolerance or acute coronary syndrome or gestational diabetes, a pregnant woman who develops diabetes, or a woman having polycystic ovarian syndrome, then these categories of people are at high risk of developing frank diabetes in future. Next slide, please. So one of the most important conditions facing the world in general and India in particular today is called as affluenza. You know, everybody has heard of influenza. So that is infectious. This is non-infectious, but highly dangerous. So affluenza, the three main risk factors for affluenza are obviously total lack of physical activity, urbanization, and increased calories in the tummy, glycemic load. So as you can see, across various strata of the society, what we find is affluenza is influencing everyone. So whether it's a laborer or whether it is a white collar worker, affluenza affects everyone. So 1 out of every 6 adolescents in the metropolitan cities is overweight. Unhealthy teens leading to explosion of diabetes in our Indian adult population. And what is the major culprit? The major culprit is inactivity, which obviously includes watching TV for long hours, munching anything and everything that comes on my way without moving. So excess of intake and total lack of output is leading to explosion in cases of prediabetes, metabolic syndrome, and type 2 diabetes. Yes, so why does obesity make people prone to diabetes? Now, it has been found that obesity, particularly abdominal obesity, which is the hallmark of Indian population. We know Indian people are called as thin, fat Indians. As compared to their European counterparts, you know, Europeans, they are fat or hugely built all over. In Indians, we have thin limbs and fat protruding tummy. So this abdominal fat is especially dangerous because this fat, it releases many chemicals. And these chemicals are called as pro-inflammatory chemicals, which make the body less sensitive to insulin. So as I said, even though insulin is produced in ample amounts, it cannot be utilized or used by our body cells. It cannot enter, and hence it affects the functions of these cells by disrupting function of insulin responsive cells. So they don't respond to insulin, which is obviously called as insulin resistance. And obesity is the main driving factor behind insulin resistance. So if we have large waistline, that is more than 80 centimeters in women, more than 90 centimeters in men, then this central or abdominal obesity is a very high risk form of obesity, which drives towards pre and then diabetes. So as we mentioned earlier, waist circumference of more than 90 and more than 80. greater chances of developing frank diabetes. And it's in our genes. As you can make out, this is a very classic example. This is called as Y-Y paradox. So on the right hand side, you can see this is a very famous diabetologist, Dr. Yagnik. So both these, they look exactly similar, but this is only the outward appearance or external appearance. What we find is, as far as body fat composition is concerned, it is way too high in an Indian as compared to his counterpart. And this is called as Y-Y paradox. Okay, let us not go into the details. We can move ahead. So how have we evolved? Sedentary lifestyle. So from where we began and from where we are now. The cycle is complete in that unhealthy pattern. Next slide, please. So that is from hunting, and now we are being hunted by so many commercial companies and company products. So we have modified our lifestyle. Now it is high time to go back to where we belong, remodify. Next slide, please. Yes. So we need to remodify. And let's concentrate on our fitness and food and family. Next slide, please. So now most important question is prevention of diabetes. Is it possible for diabetes prevention to actually happen? What do you think is the answer? The answer is yes. It is possible to prevent, to halt diabetes. Next slide, please. Why? This is the natural history of diabetes, which provides us an opportunity to halt the progression. You can see the curve. It shows normal glucose tolerance, NGT. Blood sugar levels slowly start rising, and they attain this pre-diabetes stage, which is called as impaired glucose tolerance or impaired fasting glucose. Next, if it is not halted, it continues unabated, it leads to diabetes. And if diabetes is not treated well, not controlled, then diabetes with complications. So now we have, currently let us restrict ourselves to pre-diabetic stage. Let us not discuss what happens with diabetes and complications. So pre-diabetes, as I have already mentioned earlier, is that critical stage wherein lifestyle changes, changes in food habits, exercising a lot, keeping oneself fit and being happy would be the key to keep it locked and remain. And even in fact, we can reverse this HbA1c trend and it can get back to that pre-diabetes stage or even lower, normal. Because this natural history provides us an opportunity and ample amount of time, it is possible for us to reverse the trend, to buck the trend, and even to go back to the normal glucose levels. Next slide, please. So prevention is, as usual, prevention is the best medicine to prevent type 2 diabetes. Diet, lifestyle modification, and in some cases, preventive medications are also available. Next slide, please. So how to prevent diabetes? Let's see. Most important thing is screening, early detection. There is something which is called as opportunistic screening for undiagnosed diabetes and pre-diabetes. So what is this opportunistic screening? It means those individuals who present to healthcare settings for unrelated illness. It could be anything, cough, cold, fever, vomiting, diarrhea, anything. So if these individuals are tested for blood sugar, obviously that is called as opportunistic screening. If family members accompany people having diabetes, if they are tested, yes, obviously that is called as opportunistic screening. Antenatal care, yes. In India, all the pregnant women need to be examined for blood sugar levels. People over the age of 30 years should definitely be encouraged for voluntary testing for diabetes. Community screening whenever and wherever possible. So here, what is the biggest advantage? That we catch them young and catch them early. So pre-diabetes and in some cases diabetes can be detected through various techniques such as these. Next slide, please. Now, changing lifestyle. Does it really make a difference? Can it make a difference? So let's see. The proof is in the pudding. So there are a number of studies that have been conducted across the world to assess the efficacy of lifestyle modification, adopting healthy dietary changes, and following proper exercise regime on prevention of diabetes. And what have they shown? They have shown very significantly positive, beneficial results. Next slide, please. So let's not go into the details, but there have been multiple studies conducted. This Darking study, intervention here was diet. The mean duration of follow-up was 6 years. So these people were given proper diet, exercise. What was found? That diet itself, once changed, modified, led to 31% drop in risk reduction towards the progression of diabetes. Exercise, 46%. Diet plus exercise is 42%. In another Finnish study, lifestyle modification led to 58% drop in risk reduction to diabetes. So there are multiple studies that have been carried out, and definitely there have been very, very significant results. Next slide, please. These studies were carried out called as diabetes prevention trials, but they were by use of pharmacological intervention. So these pharmacological drugs were used, and what has been found out is, you can see results were very similar. Acarbose 25%, Voglibose 40.5%. So, head to head, is non-medical intervention is better, if not at least equal to pharmacological intervention. Why not go for it? Next slide, please. Yes. So actually, what did we learn from all these well-controlled trials? One, non-pharmacological trials, that is lifestyle modification, exercise, diet, very economical, absolutely harmless, and beneficial effects not only on blood sugars, but also on blood pressure and cholesterol levels. They also improve cardiovascular risk and glucose tolerance. They are beneficial for other comorbidities as well, metabolic syndrome, coronary heart disease, and so on and so forth. So holistic approach, holistic results. Next slide, please. So let us start from next year, 1st January 2021. Okay, what we find here is, overall, you can see whether you go east, west, north, south, central, we are a high carbohydrate loaded country. So intake of carbohydrate is very, very high in our country. That is actually the foundational base of our diet. Next slide, please. How tasty? Only a packet. The slides itself is self-explanatory. Next slide, please. Nowadays, we all have jumbo vada pavs and Burger Kings. So we are not happy with paupers. We need to have kings and queens. Yes.
This looks quite delicious, yes, but absolutely. I think, but the jogging 2.5 hours is a bit too much to reduce that.
Yes. So calories taken is required for calorie burnout. 76 minutes of jog, 10 kilometers only. Right. And 2 samosas go inside within 10 minutes.
Right.
Yeah.
So the next time, I think when I gobble up 2 samosas, I'll remember that it's either the 2 samosas or the 10 kilometers of jogging.
Choice is yours. Ultimate. Cheese pizza, vis-a-vis walk and jog.
नहीं ठीक है, it's better not to eat.
Yes. So, indulgence in, yes. Occasional indulgence is fine. Next slide, please. Yeah. So the mantra is eat on time and portions are like portions. See and measure what you eat. Next slide, please. Obviously, Incha is going to deal with this in greater details. So what are the warning or dangerous signals? As at the outset, I can clearly tell you that most of the times, diabetes is very correctly called a silent killer because more often than not, there are no symptoms. If symptoms do appear, they could be many of the following: excess thirst, excess hunger, excess urination, weight loss, genitourinary infections, vaginitis and balanitis, and so on and so forth. But majority of the times, it is called as silent killer. No symptoms at all. Next slide, please. So, at least 10% weight loss would go a long way. Yes, it does make a difference. Exercise for 40 minutes, at least 5 times a week, with 20 minutes of resistance exercises 3 times a week would make you all healthy and happy and keep diabetes at bay. Yes. Next slide, please. So there are various ways to be happy. Be with nature, eat healthy, sleep like a baby. Hobbies, very, very important. Indulge in hobbies. Enjoy what you do and do what you enjoy. Express whatever you have to, need to, positively. And of course, I know that.
I agree. I think expressing things positively is
absolutely excellent. You're right. So the prevention of disease today is one of the most important factors in line of human endeavor. So very true. So no medicine cures what happiness cannot. Thank you so much for your patient listening.
Thank you, Dr. Valavalkar. And before we move to the next, where Incha takes over, which is where she will be mainly talking about, how you can, lead a happy and a healthy life. We've seen, Dr. Valavalkar's presentation where she spoke about, what are the things that we need to do to stay away from diabetes, and that's what Incha will be talking about in detail, be it diet, be it exercise, right? But before we get there, any questions for Dr. Valavalkar? Feel free to either post it or you can unmute yourself and you can ask. So we do have some questions that we have received. Perhaps we could maybe take it towards the end of the session. Yeah. So I think if there are no questions, Incha, over to you.
So hi everybody. First of all, thank you so much for such an insightful session, Dr. Samhita. It was really great. So many things that we are not aware of when it comes to diabetes and our health, you shed light on, which is excellent. So thank you so much. First of all, I'd like to introduce myself a little bit. My name is Incha Arora and I'm a health coach. And I try and help everyone find the right balance in life by altering their lifestyle in a certain way so that it becomes sustainable, so that whatever changes we make in our lifestyle becomes sustainable and a part of our lifestyle, and continue to stay with us for the rest of our life as well. So that is what I do. And I do believe that what our title is, what our title says, happiness every day keeps diabetes away. I do believe very strongly that happiness is extremely important to keep any disease at bay. So I was saying that I do believe in happiness, keeping ourselves happy to keep any disease at bay. And I believe that the key to happiness, especially when it comes to any diseases like diabetes, is acceptance. A lot of times when we realize that we are suffering from diabetes, I have seen people who are not able to accept the fact that something like this has happened, that they'll have to live with the disease for the rest of their lives. And that is where all the issues begin, because they are constantly trying to run to you know, maybe alternative medicines, or trying to heal themselves through other sources, not understanding that once diabetes sets in, then it has to be dealt with in a nice way. It becomes a part of your life, and we can still enjoy our life, having diabetes in our life as well. So we can still keep the happiness factor intact. So that is what I'm here to talk about. How we can keep our life happy, how we can keep ourselves happy when it comes to our food and our lifestyle. Um, Even though we have diabetes and we feel that our life is coming to an end. Yeah. So this is the pyramid of happiness. These are the things that we need to stay happy in our life, especially with a disease like diabetes. So the most important thing, as you can see, the base of this pyramid is sleep. Sleep is a very, very important thing in our lives. We don't really give it that much importance. We don't really understand the importance of sleep many a times, but it's really important, because that is what sets the premise for a healthy lifestyle. Yeah. So I'm just going to talk about some things that can help us sleep better, some easy tips that can help us sleep better to begin with, how we can actually improve our sleep quality. Yeah. So I would say that to improve the sleep quality, to maintain a healthy lifestyle, a healthy sleep pattern, we should try and maintain a consistent schedule. So whatever time we like to sleep, we all have a different body clock. Everybody's body clock is obviously different. Whatever your body clock is, just follow that and try and stay consistent, because that makes a huge difference, because your body gets used to a certain pattern of sleeping, and that really helps facilitate good health, role in affecting the sleep quality. So if we can control, if we can reduce the daily caffeine intake, to a certain extent. I'm not saying that don't have your daily cup of tea or coffee. Of course, have it. But if you can just reduce it, if you're having more than 2 cups of coffee or tea in a day, then that would really help improve your sleep quality as well. And we all know that gadgets are as much as a blessing that they are, thanks to the gadgets that we are able to do this webinar even though we are sitting so far away, but still it's a hindrance to our sleep pattern. So before sleeping, at least 30 minutes before that, if you can just keep all your gadgets aside, that would really help you get proper sleep as well. And two rules related to food that I would say that you should keep in mind to get proper sleep is: never go to bed on an empty stomach, and also try and not go to bed on a full stomach as well. So your dinner should be in such a way that you're not neither too full nor too hungry, because both the conditions, like full stomach and empty stomach, affect the sleep quality as well. And daily exercising helps a lot in improving the sleep quality. If you like to sleep with lights in the room, then that is also a hindrance somewhere. I feel that whenever you are sleeping, your room should be nice and quiet and somewhat dark. Like darkness is what really helps sleep better as well. And of course, try and go to sleep and wake up using your own body clock, like listen to your body, try and understand what your body's rhythm is, natural rhythm is, and try and follow that. So this is how I think we can improve the sleep quality. Now, the second important thing, if you've seen the pyramid of happiness, is stress management. Now, stress plays a huge role in our lives, whether we believe it or not. In fact, most of the food choices that we make, most of the lifestyle choices that we make, are depending on whether we have, a certain level of stress in our life or not. So, if we can learn to handle stress in a certain way, to manage stress, whatever stress we have in our life, we have that, right? We just need to learn to deal with that in a better way. So if we can understand how to do that, that also makes a huge difference. So for that, I'd say, again, I'll give you some simple tips on helping you de-stress. So first of all, I believe in keeping yourself active quite a bit. So if you take a walk during the day, or if your body is naturally active, you tend to it's a very de-stressing technique as well. So you don't have to think that, oh my god, I have to go for a walk. Like it shouldn't be a task for you. It should be something that you consider as your me time. That those 30 minutes that I go for a walk, I'm going to probably listen to some nice music, or I'm going to try and de-stress by not thinking about anything, by just enjoying myself and spending time with myself. So that definitely helps. Then, of course, listening to some nice music at times, something that's soothing for you, not necessarily meditation music, but anything that's soothing enough for you that helps you stay a little calm, obviously helps. Then breathing techniques is something that I really believe in. I believe that if we try and inculcate some breathing techniques in our daily life, it goes a long way. Yeah, it definitely helps us de-stress in a very beautiful way. And I'm going to be talking about this at the end of the session also. I will be teaching you guys one breathing technique that you can, continue following for a long, long time. An easy one, of course. Yeah, then there are other ways to de-stress as well. For example, having maybe just like a nice cup of tea is also de-stressing for so many people. I've seen so many people who come back from work in the evening and just sit down with a cup of tea, and that's it. That is de-stressing enough. Yeah, and sometimes habits like reading a good book or watching a movie or maintaining a journal, all these things also help in de-stressing quite a bit. So, but definitely ensure that you find out which de-stressing technique works for you. Not everything works on everyone. Soothing music does not work on everyone. Maintaining a journal does not work on everyone. So you have to find out what is it that de-stresses you the most. It could be just having a lovely conversation with your parents or maybe your spouse. Yeah, it could be as easy as that. But whatever it is, just find out whatever de-stresses you and definitely inculcate such techniques on a day-to-day basis, which is very important. So that is number two. That is the second thing that would make us happy and make our experience, our journey with diabetes happier. Now, the third important thing when it comes to happiness with diabetes is nutrition, of course. Yeah. Now, I want you all to understand that, of course, when we have, when there is an onset of a disease which calls for restrictive diet, there is a lot of happiness that takes away from us, because especially Indians in general, I feel that we look at food, we have a very deep emotional connect with food. More than our hunger, we reach out for food for many different reasons. For example, during Diwali, you would probably reach out for some sweets because you are happy, because you are in a festive mood. So our connection with food is at a much deeper emotional level. So whenever someone says that, you know what, you can't eat this, you are not allowed to eat this or that, then that takes a huge chunk of happiness away from us. We should not get too restrictive when it comes to our diet. We should definitely know which things work when it comes to diabetes, and which things don't work when it comes to diabetes. But at the same time, we need to find the right balance. And as long as we find that balance and find that moderation, do everything in moderation, I think we are good. So the first rule of nutrition when it comes to diabetes is eat in moderation. Eat everything in moderation. So now when you look at a typical Indian thali, a typical Indian plate, you'll see that there is a little element of everything in it. It's a naturally balanced plate. There is no problem in that. However, what I have also noticed is that through these decades, the portion sizes have drastically changed. So you go for a nice thali to a restaurant, you will get a lot of everything, not just a little bit of everything, you'll get a lot of everything. and you'll get 2, 3 rotis, you'll get a lot of rice, a huge pile of rice. So that is something that we need to avoid. We need to have a little bit of everything in our plate, a little bit of rice, a little bit of roti, some sabzi, dal, everything. Also enjoy a little bit of sweet if you like, that's fine, as long as everything is in moderation. So we need to find that balance somehow, because already our Indian thalis are balanced. We just need to recreate that balance in our daily lives and make our meals balanced. So that is the first rule. Do not restrict yourself completely, but definitely find the balance. Then, of course, with sugar levels high, with diabetes in the picture, there are a lot of foods that you should be aware of that are high in glycemic index, that are high in glucose levels, that you should definitely try and avoid. Or if you're eating, or if you're indulging in these foods, indulge in them sparingly. So this chart that you see in front of you is for that purpose, for you to understand which all foods have what kind of glycemic index. For example, if you see, if you look at the first column where it talks about grains and starches, you will see that white bread is has 100 glycemic index. Okay, it has a lot of glycemic index. That means, excuse me, whenever you will have a piece of bread, a slice of bread, you feel the sudden surge of energy, and it's also messing with your blood sugar levels because it's causing a lot of, sudden peaks in your blood sugar, and then the blood sugar will also drastically fall after a while. So we need to ensure that at any point of time, you try and maintain a low glycemic index diet, or you can also play around in the medium glycemic index, section, but try and avoid the high glycemic index foods for sure. So this is the second rule. Otherwise, I would say eat nutrient-rich food. Eat a little of everything, like I said. We need all the macronutrients in our diet. They are all essential for our diet. The fats, proteins, carbohydrates, everything is important. But we just need to ensure that when it comes to fats, especially oils, yeah, our meals, our vegetables should not be extremely oily. Just put as much oil as you need in your vegetable to be cooked properly, but don't encourage the floating of oil on the vegetables, because I know that enhances the taste, but that is not the right way to cook vegetables as well, because it does two things, especially when you have diabetes or when you're leaning towards diabetes. It not only kills the nutrition in the vegetables by overcooking it, by adding too much oil in it, but it also makes it high glycemic index, food, by making it like the worst kind of food that you can eat when it comes to diabetes. Enjoy all your proteins, of course, in moderation. Enjoy all the carbs, but try and lean more towards whole grains, I'd say. And even if you're eating your rotis, have lesser portion of roti. Not a problem. Eat whatever kind of carbohydrates work for you, except for maida, of course, because maida has extremely high glycemic index. But yes, eat it in moderation, like I said. Then eat lots of fruits and vegetables, because especially vegetables, because they give us a lot of nutrition, a lot of fiber goes inside us, and they generally help us in improving our gut health as well. So fighting with diseases or preventing diseases becomes easier with the help of fruits and vegetables, is what I'd say. Then try and eat as much natural food as possible. Now, these days, if you'll enter a supermarket, any supermarket, you'll see that more than 80% of the stuff out there is processed, canned, yeah, bottled. But we need to try and find more natural sources of foods for ourselves. And there are many natural sources of food as well. So try and lean more towards natural fresh foods than the bottled and canned and processed foods, and that also definitely helps. Another thing when it comes to dealing with diabetes is to stick to consistent meals and meal timings. Because when you are consistent with your meal timings and the kind of meals that you are having, your blood sugar levels there is not much variation in your blood sugar levels, let's say. Yeah, your blood sugar levels remain in control and your body knows what to expect. So try and maintain consistent meal timings and meals as much as possible. And try and avoid skipping the meals, because what happens is that your blood, especially if you have diabetes, your blood sugar levels would drop suddenly. And that is also not good for diabetics. You need to ensure that you are eating after regular intervals of time, meals during the day, so that there is not a longish gap in between your meals for sure. Then please don't stop yourself from having your soul food. Now, when I talk about soul food, I'm not talking about pizzas and burgers. That is not soul food. That is comfort food, I'd say. That is the food that we run to when we are seeking comfort, emotional comfort in a way. But soul food is a kind of food that we have grown up eating, that we somewhat relate to in an emotional way. For example, dal khichdi for me is my soul food. I love dal khichdi in any form. So we all have that one food that we really love, that pleases our soul in a way. So find that food and eat it. There is no problem. Yeah. As long as the moderation is the key, is the rule that you're following, you can eat whatever it is that you like. Not an issue. And then lastly, I want you to listen to your body, because there are a lot of things, a lot of foods that may suit one person that not suit somebody else. I want you to understand what suits you. So each time you have a meal, you have something, I want you to try and understand what is it that your body is telling you. Does that food agree with your system or not? Does your system like it? Is your digestion better after eating something? So all these things are signs that your body is constantly sending you. Always listen to your body and then take a call on the kind of foods that you want to include in your diet. And then, of course, the last thing that we need to keep ourselves happy, with diabetes is to exercise. Now, a lot of times people ask me this question that, what, I walk for 30 minutes in a day, but it's not doing much to me, in the sense I'm not feeling like, I'm making any progress in terms to anything. Nothing seems to be changing. So for that, I always tell them that, see, walking is a part of your active lifestyle. It is not a workout. It is not something that is going to have a major impact on your system. It is a part of your active lifestyle. Definitely walk for 30 to 40 minutes in a day, if possible an hour a day, at least 5 times a week, because that is something that your body is meant to do. Your body is meant to stay active. So definitely do that. But if you want better results in terms to weight loss or in terms to health gain, then indulge in rigorous workouts. Yeah, rigorous workouts, mainly your resistance training. So you should indulge in resistance training for at least 3 to 4 days a week. And you don't need to make it like a 1 hour affair. So you have to mentally prepare yourself before doing it. 15 to 20 minutes of your time on a daily basis is absolutely fine. But yes, something that pushes your system, more than your normal walk, is something that we definitely need to inculcate in your lifestyle. Yeah, so that is about exercise. And if I had to sum this all up, and if I had to tell you what your overall health, what are the pillars of our overall health, what all things we need to maintain our overall health, I would say, first of all, nutrition. Yeah, as we spoke about, eat a healthy diet, eat a balanced diet, eat everything in moderation, and don't restrict yourself too much. But yes, don't let loose too much as well. Yeah, find your balance. Exercise, of course. Indulge in rigorous workouts along with your walks, along with your daily walks and your daily active lifestyle schedule. Make sure that there is some rigorous workout happening as well. Mobility, like I said, mobility is your walking, a little bit of jogging, running around, doing your household chores. Sleep is very important, like we spoke about, because it forms the basis of everything. It's the base of, a good health for sure. Have lots of water, as much as you think you need, as much as you think your body needs. Take care of your well-being in a way. So I feel that most people, when they follow a schedule in a way, like a personal health care, or a personal or personal hygiene schedule. It could be anything. It could be like a night ritual of just washing your face and going to bed. Something, anything that you're doing for yourself, for your well-being also really helps. So try and inculcate such structured activities in your daily, lifestyle as well. And then also try and finish off your day with a small bit of reflection on what your day has been like, what your day has looked like. That really helps, because most of the times what I've also seen is that we take a lot of petty issues, petty matters to bed with us. Yeah, a lot of things that we don't necessarily need to stress over. We take all those things to bed just because we don't get time to, assess which issues to worry about, which to not. So if you just take 2 to 3 minutes at night before going to worrying you, what is not worrying you, that makes a huge difference. And that also helps you sleep better in a way. Yeah. So that is, these are the mantras to overall health, like I said. And if Aki, do we have a little time? Can I discuss a breathing technique? Can I introduce that to us? Or are we running out of time?
Yeah. I think we can do that.
Can you hear me?
There is, I think your internet seems to be thoda choppy, I think. Can you?
Yeah. We have time to.
Yeah, we do have. We have.
Like a minute. Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Right. So as I discussed in the initial part of my talk, that breathing technique, I would like to give you guys a small into how calming and easy breathing technique. All right. So in this breathing technique, it's very simple. What all we need to do is, I want you to breathe in. Then 7 counts, I want you to hold your breath for. And 8 counts, I'd like you to breathe out through your mouth. All right. So please sit wherever you are in a comfortable position. Relax your shoulders. Put your hands on your thighs and close your eyes. And now breathe in. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold your breath. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And now breathe out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We'll do it one more time. Please keep your eyes closed. Now slowly breathe in. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold your breath. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And now breathe out through your mouth. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now slowly open your eyes and tell me how you guys felt. You can just share your responses on the chat as well. But yes, so this is a very simple breathing technique that can instantly make us feel a little de-stressed and a little calmer. So definitely include such things, such techniques in your lifestyle on a day-to-day basis to help, to help get happier with diabetes and deal with diabetes in a better way. Also, before I conclude the session, I would also like to say that whenever we feel that something is not allowed in our diet or something we are not allowed to do, always remember that we don't have to consider it as glass half empty. There are other avenues that it opens. There are other options that we can always turn to, that we can explore when it comes to eating and lifestyle, that we have to look at. So always look at the glass half full and not glass half empty. Yeah. And I think that should be it. Over to you,
Thank you.
Akhil.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Insha. That was very informative. And yes, the breathing technique, it does help as always. And I think for me, initially, I think whenever I do it the first time, it is very difficult for me to hold the breath. But I think when I do it the second time, yes, it does make a difference.
It
Thank
does
you.
take a little bit of practice, but yeah,
It does.
it's something that we can't get.
Yes, and any. So I think before people start with questions, there's one question that I have for both Dr. Valabalkar and for you, Insha. And I thought, of course, this is a question that I think somebody had asked me. So people keep worrying about, right? I think, do I have diabetes? मेरे मुझे diabetes है या नहीं है? So does fear, what role does fear play, when it comes to diabetes? So डर का क्या role है diabetes में? And how can people, because it's somewhere between your eyes and ears and the brain, right? वो डर उधर बैठा होता है. So उसके लिए क्या कर सकते हैं?
Dr. Samita, would you like to? Okay.
Yeah. Unmute.
Hello.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Good question. A little difficult to answer, perhaps. Yes. Basically, everyone is fearful. There are some unfounded fears as well. So because pertaining to diabetes, as we all know, because diabetes, once a diabetic, always a diabetic. We need to understand this, that
Right.
we have to live with diabetes if it comes to that. But, and I understand the fears, but that is not how it should be taken for. We need to be aware. And there is a difference between being aware and getting afraid. There are no symptoms. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Am I audible?
Yes,
Okay,
yes,
okay.
you are audible.
No, because it showed that internet connection is unstable. So
Yeah, now you are audible. Yes.
yeah, okay. So fearing the disease without any substantial or without any proof is not the way to go. Okay. Now, as we were discussing earlier, firstly, if you fear that you might be having diabetes, then the best way to go ahead is to get it clarified. And there are very simple tests available.
Yeah.
Yes. If you have some symptoms, which we were discussing initially, excess thirst or excess appetite, weight loss, some genitourinary infection, fatigue. There are multiple symptoms, and as I said, most of them do not have any symptoms actually at the time of diagnosis. But if you have, then yes, definitely we can get ourselves tested. Once clarified here or there, both stand a lot of things. Firstly, it will clarify any doubt that you might be having. If unfortunately or fortunately, it is proved that you have diabetes, no worries, treatments are available. You need to take the treatment on time. And whatever we discussed about pre-diabetes, whatever we discussed about insulin resistance, yes, holistic lifestyle is the way to go ahead, without diabetes or with diabetes. Now, as far as fear is concerned, anxiety is concerned, anxiety can kill and kill very badly.
Yes.
There are certain conditions which are called as psychosomatic illnesses. Stress can do wonders. De-stressing us again can do wonders. So being optimistic, being positive is the way to go. Anxiety does lead to increase in many things. Why only sugars? Sugars go up, blood pressure goes up. There are so many things can happen because of fear. So we need to face the world, we need to face the realities, and we need to be ready with something unexpected. Once we know that anything and everything is possible, why fear? Why worry? So we need to be positive take it head on and move ahead.
Right.
I suppose I understand that it's easier said than done, but then if there is no option, there is no option. So no worries, no fears.
Yes.
I agree,
Actually.
Dr. Punita. And I'd also like to add on to that and say that, see, fear is again a negative emotion, you know. So there are negative emotion would actually cause you to eat certain kind of foods more than the others. So by only fearful about getting diabetes, I think you might actually lean towards that by not being able to control what you're eating, because any kind of negative emotions trigger emotional eating, as we all know. And sometimes it's very difficult to come out of an emotional eating cycle. So we may not realize this, but simply out of fear, we may eat certain things that we're not supposed to eat. And also, I'd like to say that if you're fearful, if let's say your fear is at its peak, if you're so fearful that, oh my God, I'm going to get diabetes, then start changing your lifestyle. That is in your control. That is the most effective way to deal with your fear, by killing the aspects that may be causing fear. So just change your lifestyle and change it in a nice way without feeling that your diet or life is getting too restrictive. Find your balance. Just start following a balanced diet and you'll see wonders happening there itself. So yeah.
Yeah, thanks. I think that made sense. And yes, Dr. Sanita, I think I agree. Anxiety does.
You know that very famous ad says, "Dar ke aage jeet hai."
Yes,
Yes.
very true.
We need to conquer our fears.
Yes,
Conquer
that's
your
true.
fears. Yeah.
Right. Right. And yes, I think anxiety is something that, of course, I think that the next step that people take is, go on Google it up.
Yes.
And that's what I had done, with a severe anxiety and a panic attack.
Yes, of course.
I remember contacting Dr. Panikar, that's Vijay uncle, and telling him that I think I may have thyroid or I may have diabetes. And his response was, why don't you come here and start, meeting my patients instead? Because you need to know, just with that anxiety or panic, you need to know that. So yeah, I agree. I think fear is something that needs to be conquered.
Now that you mentioned Dr. Panikar, it's his very famous dialogue to each and every patient who tells him, मैं डरता हूँ, इंसुलिन से डरता हूँ, ये नहीं लूंगा. So he would definitely mention, शोले देखिए? So हाँ देखिए. कितनी बार देखिए? So somebody would say 25 बार, somebody would say 2-3 बार. वो गब्बर का famous dialogue याद है? Yes sir, no sir वगैरह. And then जो डर गया समझो, 90 no, मर गया. Yes.
Right.
So very true. Yes.
All right. I think some other questions, but while I get these questions from the Pandora box that I have, if people on call have questions, feel free to unmute or put it in the chat box. Yeah, I think the next question is, does having diabetes mean that I'm at, which you've covered already, but does that mean I'm at higher risk for other medical problems? And do I need to see other doctors regularly, such as an eye doctor, if I have diabetes?
Sure. Yes. It is true that if you have diabetes, you are prone to develop many other associated problems, complications as well. But if your diabetes is under control, if your blood pressure is under control, if your cholesterol levels are under control, if you are active, if you keep your weight under check, then you can lead absolutely normal life like any other person with or without diabetes. Diabetes does make person prone because basically diabetes is, arteriosclerotic disease. It does lead to very many complications, and hence it is very, very pertinent for us to not only keep sugars, but as I mentioned, pressure and cholesterol and weight under check, be active, be happy, and be healthy. Then there won't be any problem.
Thank you. That does help. Yeah, I think the most common question that people keep asking is, if parents have diabetes, are children at increased risk for the disease? And I think this is also something that you've covered.
Yes, as far as type 2 diabetes is concerned, it is true that does have strong genetic preponderance. So if one of the parents is diabetic or two of the parents, both the parents are diabetic, then the chances of children having diabetes does tend to increase. But at the same time, it is extremely important for us to note that in India, one amongst 10 or 11 Indians is a diabetic as per the latest data. And most of them do not have family history. So it is not that only those who have parents as diabetic would only develop diabetes. No way. In fact, there are so many adults nowadays in their early 30s, why in fact even in early 20s, who have diabetes. Their parents are very fine, their grandparents are super fine. Basically, genetics plays a small role. It is not the whole and soul. It is not be all and all. There are influences because of lifestyle, influences because of environment. We have changed. As we just saw, we have evolved. In some ways, it is positive evolution. In some ways, it is negative evolution. So sedentary lifestyle, unhealthy dietary habits, then obviously not having food on time and as and when possible. So, all these addictions, lack of sleep, lot of stress all around. So all of them, they do play a role in basically what is causing this overt and under the carpet wala diabetes. So it is like, a loaded gun. A loaded gun is not dangerous because the trigger is in your hand. If you don't pull the trigger, there is no worry. So we need to be very cautious. And if we adopt holistic lifestyle, keep our weight under check. What are all these? These are the triggers to that loaded gun. So keep your weight under control, adopt healthy lifestyle, have proper food at proper intervals, be happy, and obviously keep getting tested. Once we cross 30, once a year, if you have strong hereditary tendency, yes, you should go in even without that, and opportunistic testing. That would go a long way. And if at all you develop diabetes, then as Incha put it very nicely, don't stay in denial. Accept, start treatment, and go ahead. And remember, it is going to be your lifelong companion. You have to accept your lifelong companion, come what may. That's the way to go.
Yeah, that's very well said. So either we focus on adopting the holistic lifestyle and keeping diabetes at bay, or we accept it as a companion and move forward. Yeah, I think with that, I think just one last question before we end this interactive webinar. Does diabetes mean I have to stop eating the foods that I like the best? So it's either you or Insha, anyone could answer.
See, like I said, there are many foods out there that are high in glycemic index, extremely high in glycemic index. So we need to understand that there are certain foods that are not good when it comes to your diabetes condition. So definitely avoid those. But having said that, let's say you're going for a birthday party and there's the cake is being cut. That does not mean that you cannot have a small piece of cake. Of course you can. Please enjoy it. But don't, like like Dr. Vijay Panikar says, don't go for a birthday party every day then. If you have to enjoy that moment, but then don't go for such things, every single day. So that's the only thing. Find your moderation, find your balance, eat balanced diets. Eat a balanced diet, eat balanced meals. That is the key to a good health. You don't need to restrict yourself completely. As long as you found that moderation, you've understood that moderation is the key, you're fine.
Thank you, Insha. And yes, I think we'll remember that either you eat the cake or you don't go for the birthday party. Very well said.
Don't go one, every single day for a birthday party. Go once a month. That's fine.
All right. Right. Okay, I think with that we've come to an end, to this interesting webinar. And if people have questions, feel free to ask. You can either post it or you can unmute yourself. If not, then I think we hope you found this useful. Yeah. Thank you again, Dr. Sanhita and Insha, for enlightening us on this topic. And I'm sure we will now be more conscious of the lifestyle choices we make in an attempt to experience holistic wellness. And thank you to all our participants for being here. And with that, our next webinar would be in the month of Jan, the next month. So far, all our webinars, we've tried to focus on the physical aspects of it. So the next webinar, we're going to be talking about self-love. That's one thing that you could utilize or use the most to keep all or at least most of the illnesses at bay. So keep watching this space for more updates, and we hope you all have a healthy and a happy 2021. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all. Thank you, Akshay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Insha. Thank you, Shweta. Thank you, all listeners.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank